In this video, we're talking about 4 different popular variable ND filters to see if there's any difference between them and to see if price really makes a difference on whether one's better over the other. Let's get into it. If you're new here to this channel, my name is Jevin Dovey. I'm an adventure filmmaker, and on this channel, you're gonna find education for creators. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on those bell notifications so you don't miss one of these videos. So the 4 variable ND filters that we're going to compare in this video is the Moment, PolarPro, Freewell, and Syrp. And the reason that you would use one of these filters is that you'll get multiple stops of ND so that you can carry one filter in the place of multiple filters. The point of using an ND filter is to basically bring down your shutter speed so you don't have super jittery looking footage, and so you could shoot at a more wide open aperture so you can get that shallow depth of field without cranking up your shutter speed. If you want a more in-depth explanation around ND filters, I'll put a link down below in the description to a video that I did all about why you use ND filters. So I'm down here at the beach with my buddy Dan. He's got a couple channels, right?
Dan Whitmer Vids is my personal one, and then Jump Rope Dudes is my business channel.
He's gonna do some skating so I can film, the different ND filters that we have. So the 3 things that I'm gonna be looking at when comparing these filters is, first, the color shift. Is there any sort of color shift on the image? So throughout this video, all the footage that you're gonna see is shot with a locked-in white balance so that we can see if there is any sort of shift with each filter. The second thing I'm gonna be looking at is cross-polarization. And you're gonna really notice this when you use wide lenses. And what happens is different parts of the image will get darker and it ends up ruining your image because it's not a consistent look across the entire image. And the third thing that I'm gonna be looking at is the experience working with the filters. So just my thoughts about actually shooting with these filters and which ones I like based on feel and based on how easy they are to use. So let's get started with the Moment filters. So this is the case that comes with the Moment filter. It's a screw-on lid. And for me, I've actually had the most issue in terms of cases with this. Now, obviously you can ditch your case and get a different case that works better, but when putting this back on, it's actually a pain to get it back in there. It's not as easy as some of the other ones, and it's just one thing that I've noticed that really bothers me. So with the Moment variable ND filter, you get 2 to 5 stops of ND. Something that's unique with this filter is that instead of having just stops in terms of number, you have 2 stops, 3 stops, 4 stops of ND, they're actually telling you how much ND you're putting on your lens. So you have an ND4, ND8, ND16, and ND32. A little bit different, something that you don't see on the other variable ND filters. Now, all the filters that I have in this video all have hard stops. And what that means is that you can't twist it past the range that you can use this filter in. So with the Moment filter, I do like the look of it. It's got a nice red band around it. It's easy to attach to your lens, and it's super easy to get off. So it's been a great experience working with this filter. Now, one thing to note is that this filter is super wide compared to the others. It's probably the biggest when it sits on your lens. For me, when I keep this on my lens, it is a little frustrating that it's so much wider than the rest of the lens. Now, what's really cool about this filter is that you can put the lens cap on it, the lens cap that came with the lens that you're using, so you don't have to have some special proprietary lens cap to go on this, and it works great. Now, the price for the 67mm is $149, and to get the pack of 2, so you have 2 to 5 stops and then 6 to 9, if you get the pack of 2, it's $279. So it's a little bit cheaper than the PolarPro ones, but it's also not the cheapest out of all of them that we're talking about in this video. So I saw some issues with the image quality when I was shooting with this one. It has a green-yellow shift, and you can really see it when you put it next to an image that has no filter on it. Now, the second thing I noticed was the cross-polarization gets bad when you're on 4 or 5 stops of ND, and this is on a super wide lens. With longer lenses, you're not gonna see this cross-polarization. However, it is noticeably there when you're using a wide lens. And for me, cross-polarization is a big issue because I do a lot of shooting on wide lenses. Anytime I'm vlogging, I'm gonna use a wide lens, and I want to use ND filters so that I can keep my shutter speed at the proper shutter speed so that my image isn't distracting. And also I wanna be able to have, the blurry background. I wanna have shallow depth of field. So I like to use ND filters when I'm vlogging, and cross-polarization is an issue, and this definitely has it on 4 or 5 stops. You start to notice it a little bit at 3, but it's really not super noticeable. So the moment filters have a unique problem that you don't see on the other ones. The front element of this filter is super reflective. So when I'm looking at my lens, I'm seeing like a super clear image of my face. Right now I'm just staring at my lips talking. When you look at the other lenses, they're much darker, so you're not seeing the reflection like I'm seeing right now. If you're shooting talent and they're seeing themselves in the reflection, it could pull them out of whatever it is that you're shooting, whether it's, a scripted scene or even like documentary. Someone who's not natural on camera, they're seeing themselves in the lens, it's gonna be really distracting. And for me, it keeps pulling me out. That's why I'm having to cut so much, because I keep losing my train of thought as I'm looking at this. I mean, I guess you can get over it after a while, but it's something that's super noticeable. So next up, let's take a look at the PolarPro filters. Now these are the most expensive out of the entire batch here. The 2 to 5 stop is $250, and the 6 to 9 is $300, and you can get the combo pack for $450. That's a big chunk of money that you have to shell out for 2 filters. Now when it comes to the case is nice. It's got a magnetic close, so it's easy to slip in your bag, and it's a square. Now the actual filter itself has a special cap on it, and this is one thing that I personally like about the PolarPro over all of the other variable ND filters. And you have this rubberized cap, and this rubberized cap is super useful if you're filming in any situation where things might be a little bit more rough. So whenever I've been out hiking or climbing, I always bring these filters with me with this cap, because it's gonna protect the lens. One huge benefit of using the PolarPros is this. Now, PolarPro has another product called a Defender, which is similar to this, but it hooks around kind of your whole lens. And so if you don't want to pay for an expensive variable ND filter, but you still want this style of cap, there is options for that, and I do like those as well. Now with the Peter McKinnon PolarPro variable ND filter, you can see the numbers pretty easily. You do have to tilt the camera slightly. It's not that big of a deal. With the Moment one, it's a little bit easier because the numbers face you. It's the only variable ND filter that actually does that, but it comes at a cost of being much wider. So this one is super easy to see all the numbers on the filter. It's easy to put on and off your camera. I've had no issues of getting it on and off, and it moves well, it slides well, and it doesn't slip. So I've been working with the PolarPro variable ND filter for a while, and I do like the way that it looks. I haven't really noticed any massive color shifts. However, when I went down to the beach and I did the side-by-side comparisons, the PolarPro filter was the only one out of these 4 that shifted a little bit more into the cool spectrum, so a little bit more of the blues. I definitely saw cross-polarization issues when I was shooting at 4 and 5 stops. So it's definitely not a perfect filter. I think it works great. I've used them for a while, so from my experience, I've liked them, but you do have cross-polarization issues on wide lenses. So next up is the Syrp filters. So these are priced somewhere in the middle. It's $139 for the 67mm, and it's $189 for the 82mm. So these filters are the smallest of the entire batch. Now the case, it's got a nice leather case with a zipper. Seems to work well. I haven't had any issues with this case. So this filter goes from 1.5 to 8 stops of filtration. So that's the big selling point over the other filters. This one gives you more ND in one filter. However, that comes at a cost. With this filter, it's gonna sit flush on your lens. So that's good because when you add it onto your lens, nothing's sticking out the sides. Now you can use your normal lens cap on this, and it seems to work pretty well. Getting it on and off is actually kind of hard because you have this small ring around the edge, which is supposed to be your grip, and your fingers it doesn't really work very well. So like to get it on and off, you really have to squeeze tight. And if it's on there tight, you really have to like crank on the lens to get it off. Oh, and I just messed up my shot that I was doing
to try and match up all these shots.
The colors tend to shift a little bit more warmer as you get darker on this ND filter. It doesn't seem to be consistent across all of the ND stops as the other filters. Now, once you go past 4 or 5 stops of ND on this filter, it's completely unusable. It suffers from major cross polarization. Now, you might not notice this if you're on a super long lens, but when you're shooting on wide lenses, you definitely see some massive cross polarization happening. And I actually took this filter with me to the Azores last year, and I ended up shooting a ton of footage that was all ruined because of the cross polarization. So having the 8 stops seems great, but it definitely opens up a world of potential problems. And personally, I don't want to have this in my bag and accidentally pull it up too high and then end up with bad footage like I did in the Azores. So the last filter we're gonna be talking about is the Freewell. So the Freewell is the cheapest out of all of these filters. The case itself is very cheap. It's just like a plastic case. There's nothing special about it. It holds the filter. That's what you need it to do, so it's not that big of a deal. Now, when it comes to this filter, they have a different system set up. You can't use your lens cap on it. You have to use their proprietary magnetic system that they've built. For some people, this is going to be awesome because the magnetic system allows you to take filters on and off your camera super fast. I have a set of these filters that are not variable ND, and you can switch between the different NDs super easily by just magnets popping on and off. However, for me, when I'm throwing my gear around a little bit more, I have it in a backpack, I've noticed that these magnets tend to pop off. So I personally am not the biggest fan of the magnetic system just because it's not super secure. I would rather see this magnet system with like a half turn that ends up locking it so that when you put this in your bag, there's no chance of it popping off. So that's just one thing to think about if you are to go with the Freewell system. However, you might actually like the magnet system, so it might be something for you to check out. The other thing is that this is the cheapest out of all the filters that we're reviewing on this. It's $109, or the set of 2, 2 to 5, 6 to 9, is $200, which is a huge difference than the PolarPro, which are $450 for the same 2 variable ND filters. So it's just something to consider if price is one of those things that's really deterring you from getting one of the more expensive set of variable NDs, these ones might be the one to check out. Now, I haven't had any issues getting these on and off the lens. They have nice hand grips. Even though they're thin, you can still get your fingers on there and pop it off super easily. So with this filter, I saw a similar shift as the Moment filters. It has a little bit of green-yellow in the image. Now, it also suffers from cross-polarization when you get into 4 or 5 stops. So my conclusion after working with all of these filters is that there is no perfect variable ND filter. They all are gonna suffer from one issue or another. When it comes to the color shift, you can fix that easily by just white balancing with the filter on. You could also just do a little tweaking in post and it could fix any sort of push towards yellow or green that you're seeing in your image. Now, the issue is the cross polarization. You can't fix that. There's no way to fix that in post. So what I've been doing is basically using both the 2 to 5 and 6 to 9 and really only using them in the middle. And that's not the best solution because you are still opening yourself up to a world of problems if you are using wider lenses and you crank it all the way to the end. I think that a better solution is just to have a set of normal ND filters where there's no opportunity for you to have some cross polarization problems. And I think for me, after doing this test and going through all these filters and trying them in the different settings side by side by side, I realized that variable ND filters might not be the best way to go. They make it easier because you don't have to carry as much gear, but what I'm finding is that I'm gonna be carrying at least 2 of these filters all the time. So if I could find 2 to 3, 4 filters that I use often and just carry those instead and have non-variable ND filters, that's gonna be a better solution because there's gonna be no chance of this cross polarization happening. So guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. This completely made me rethink how I'm gonna be using ND filters, and I think I'm actually gonna be getting rid of my variable NDs now. But guys, that is it. I will see you in the next one.